Okay. In Tavshin Lamed Hey, 1975, that was speaking about the time after Hanukkah, and Rebbe said that the unique energy in the time after Yontif is celebrated. After Yontif, we have the day after Yontif, and it's called Isru Chag. The day after Yontif is called Isru Chag. On Purim, we celebrate the night after Purim. Now, you might say we celebrate the night after Purim because there is Purim within the cities outside of Shushan, and there's Purim within Shushan, and they celebrate Purim on different days in order to join the celebration of Purim in Shushan and Yerushalayim, which they celebrate Purim a day later. That's why our Purim meal is in the evening, and we want to continue the Purim into the night after. But that wouldn't explain the reason why Purim is celebrated that way. In Shushan itself, Purim is also celebrated in the evening. So there's always an emphasis of drawing the Yontif in the time after the Yontif. But every Shabbos we have a Malav Malka. Right? We aren't just satisfied with celebrating Shabbos. Shabbos is over, and we still do another something associated with Shabbos. There's a whole section of Shulchan Aruch about Malav Malka, but bringing the Shabbos into the time after Shabbos. So the Rebbe said that by Chanukah we don't find a specific custom to be done the night after Chanukah, but the truth is that there's a lot of energy the night after Chanukah. There is a yearning. Whenever you have something and then you don't have it, you have a yearning for it. So on Shabbos, in addition to the fact that we're yearning for Shabbos as soon as Shabbos ends, we have to wait those 6 days till then, Hashem gives us something else that we could satisfy that yearning with and use that yearning for something positive. And what is that? What did Hashem give us on the night after Shabbos? He gave us Malav Malka. So we don't just have a yearning for something that will help us and will enhance our next Shabbos. There's something practical that we actually could do that will satisfy and give us something. It says about Levin that I mentioned the story in this Farbrengen about, even to the details of the story. I'm not sure the exact details of the different versions of the story. How on the night after Sukkot, after 9 days without tefillin, he was so excited to put on tefillin, and he waited all night after Simchas Torah, to be able to put on tefillin, so that in the morning, we heard the story was he kept his tefillin in some kind of glass case. So in the morning he was so excited to put on tefillin, was just waiting for the crack of dawn to do the mitzvah. So he put his hands through the case, and because of his yearning, his excitement for the mitzvah. So something gets accomplished by yearning for something, by missing something. So Rebbe said by Chanukah, however, we don't find that, but that doesn't mean that there isn't such an energy. There is, and it doesn't mean that energy shouldn't be used. It should be, and the way it should be used, Rebbe said, is by doing. We can't actually light them on the night after Chanukah. It's not done, but we should, just like the Talmud says, that if you learn about a sacrifice, it's as if you brought a sacrifice. So too regarding Chanukah, by studying Torah about Chanukah, you draw into the world a similar energy to that of Chanukah. So you are not just having a yearning for something that you'll have, it'll help you have celebrate Chanukah, Mitzvah Shem next year, Chanukah Balin Oteva. Next year in Yerushalayim with Mashiach, we'll celebrate Chanukah again. Your Chanukah will be enhanced by your yearning for Chanukah. But there's something that right now you can get from Chanukah, and you should get from Chanukah, and that is by studying about Chanukah. And that study, you have spiritually the idea and the message and the energy of Chanukah. And then they spoke about the following idea. In Chanukah, we have this a little bit more than the other holidays. In Chanukah, this concept of how Chanukah transfers to after Chanukah, we have actually more than other holidays. How so? The mitzvah of lighting the menorah is at sundown. Why is it at sundown? In the Beis Hamikdash, the lighting the menorah was done at Plag HaMincha, over an hour before sundown. The simple reason that people think we light the menorah at sundown is because the Talmud says, Sharga b'tiara mayahani, which literally means a wick b'tiara in the middle of the sunlight. What benefit does it have? That's the simple reason people understand we don't light the menorah during the daytime, because what point can a candle have during the daytime? But first of all, that's not so true. Depends what time of day. Tiara, according to Rashi, tiara usually means middle of the afternoon. In the early afternoon, the sun is shining in its strongest throughout the day. Then indeed, mayahani, then indeed the wick doesn't accomplish anything. But in the later hours in the day, when it starts to get dark, yes, a candle does accomplish something, as we can see. So why is it that the kindling of the menorah specifically at sundown? So the reason is as we've been pickled in Hasidic juice, so we know the answer. But the answer has a nuance. There's two parts of the answer. One part of the answer is the purpose of the lighting the menorah is to overcome the darkness. There is darkness. The sun sets. The sun represents the revelation of godliness higher than Malchus. The revelation of Hashem sets, and now we are meant and we are commanded and we are empowered to give light to the darkness. So the world is getting lower, and we are meant in that lower state to give light to that lower state. That's one way of understanding. But Chassidus says it goes a lot deeper than that. It says in Chassidus, it says that the sun sets, it yearns to go to the place where it sets, because there in the place where it sets, that's where it shines the most. In other words, it's not that there's also light in the place of where the sun sets, and that light is what we're supposed to contribute to overcome the darkness, but there's actually a much greater light that is created by the sun setting. By the lack of revelation, there is something greater that is accomplished, something more. There are different kinds of sunset spiritually, and each kind of sunset is meant to arouse a higher and deeper light. There is the sunset of the birth of Adam. It says in Tanya that when God created Adam, he blew into Adam's nostrils a spirit of life. It says in Tanya, to blow into someone's nostrils, to blow in general, requires a greater and deeper force. So the meaning of Hashem creating the soul of Adam by blowing means that God gave him a soul that comes from the deepest and highest levels of holiness and godliness. That the soul that Adam was given was the actual part of God. And yet, the soul changed a lot when it was in God's breath, so to speak, to the way it became into the body of Adam. When it was within God, it was incapable of sin. When it entered a body, that's when sin was introduced. That's when the possibility for mistakes were introduced. So the sun sets in the birth of Adam, and the purpose of this isn't that Adam should fail, it's something better should happen. The sun is set in his birth, but there's a greater sunset when the Beis Hamikdash is destroyed. The Beis Hamikdash is destroyed, the revelation of Hashem ceases in the way that we saw it in the 10 miracles that happened every day in the Beis Hamikdash, in the Shekhinah that was revealed in the Beis Hamikdash. So the sun sets somewhat in the destruction of the Beis Hamikdash. But even after that destruction, there is still some kind of revelation. As it says in the Talmud, there was still some prophecy even after the destruction of the Beis Hamikdash. There was still revelation. And then that was taken away as well. And Rebbe said a person may ask, why all the sunsets? Why does it take away all this revelation? What's the point of the concealment of godliness? So before we go further to another sunset, I just want to highlight another point I mentioned this Fabrenga, and that is Um, okay, let's go for this first. Our own sunsets. And there it says there is our own sunsets. Our own sunsets means that when we make personal mistakes of our own volition, of our own doing, so we have to realize that just like in the birth of Adam, which was divinely orchestrated, that descent, that sunset, was for the purpose of revelation. It was the purpose of something better happening. So too is true for all the sunsets that happen in history, all the tests that Hashem gives us. Like this says about Abraham. Abraham passed 9 tests. He was doing extremely well. He was doing really good. He passed all the 9 tests. And yet Hashem wanted to bring him to a whole different place. And therefore, the Torah says, Hashem Nisas Avraham, God tested Avraham. The word test means he lifted him up. He lifted him up to a whole new place, which is incomparably greater than the place it was before. So much so that the Torah says that all the tests he had before were negligible compared to where Hashem wanted to bring him through this 10th test. So the purpose of him being in a state of darkness or confusion was in order for him to be elevated to a higher place. It wasn't for the purpose of hurting him, which Rebbe said it certainly did hurt Avram. Yes, Chassidus usually emphasizes how Avram went with Simcha, and Avram was so happy, and he and Yitzchak didn't know, and Yitzchak was happy, and Avram did know, and he was still happy anyways. Rebbe said that's true, but it wouldn't be called a test for Avram if he wasn't pained. If Avraham didn't have pain, it wouldn't be called a test. So certainly on the one hand, Avram was joyful, doing what Hashem wants. Not only was he joyful, but as it says in Tanya, he went with alacrity, and that's really the merit that we have, that we were bequeathed from Avraham. Was not just that he did what God told him to do, but he did it with such joy and such speed. But it was called a test because it was painful, because he didn't want to do it. It was hard. And it was precisely because it was so hard that he was able to achieve an incomparable elevation. And similarly, throughout the exile, whenever you see the sun setting in some way, in a way that's incomparable, we can't understand, it's incomprehensible, the purpose of that sunset, we have to realize, is always for something greater. Now, how does it create something greater? On the surface, when the sun sets, when there's darkness in the world, so then we are commanded to give light to that place of darkness, that time of darkness. We are commanded to overcome darkness. But it's not just that we're commanded to. It's that time of life, that time of concealment, that time of darkness elicits something deeper within us. In order to be able to overcome the darkness, you have to search within yourself. You're not able to overcome darkness without using, when the going gets tough, the tough must get going or they can't survive. So the tougher parts of ourselves, the deeper parts of ourselves are necessary. Rabbi Springer used to give the following analogy. He said that not everyone's happy. Everyone would rather be in a time of history where there's more godly revelation, where it's a little easier. It's easier to see what's going on. The analogy I would give was a thief. A thief is home and he's tired and it's raining and it's cold and it's muddy. And his wife says, no, go to work. And he's like, go to work now? Are you kidding? It's cold, it's muddy, it's dark. Just this is your night. In Europe, and when it was muddy in the olden days, it was a lot easier to be successful in stealing when it was harder to call the constable, the policeman. So she's like, this is what this is what your whole life is about. You're waiting for you this night. This is when you operate. So in a similar way, Hashem brought our neshamas, our souls, to this time of history, because this is what we are meant to do. This is what our life is about. It's about being in a time when the sun sets at the end of the exile, when there is the greatest darkness, so much darkness that we don't even realize there's such a thing called darkness. We don't realize it's any issue. That's what our souls were chosen to do. That's what we are meant to do, through one good thought, one good action, one good word, to tip the scale. Similarly, when Chanuka ends, which Hashem tonight, there's something unique about Chanuka that is different to all other holidays. It says that each holiday corresponds to one of our forefathers. So it wasn't from the same Farbrengen, it's from Farbrengen in Tafshin Yud Ches. In every holiday has to do with one of our forefathers. Avram is associated with Pesach and also with a morning prayer. So when it says in the Chassidus that Pesach continues on after Pesach, it means that Pesach continues in the light of the energy of Hashem that we receive every morning to daven Shachars. Our Shachars are impacted by Avraham, by Pesach, and Avram gives us the energy of Pesach throughout the year. That's how we're able to daven Shachars. Yitzchak is associated with Shavuos and Mincha. So Yitzchak, who the Torah says he prayed Mincha, he's associated with the holiday of Shavuos, and in the light of Shavuos and continues throughout the year and empowers our Minchas. Yaakov is associated with Sukkos and Ma'ariv. So Sukkot continues throughout the year in our davening of Ma'ariv. Chanukah is about sacrifice. Chanukah is about Mesiras Nefesh. Chanukah is a time when we are able and we're commanded, we're allowed, we're empowered to call forth a part in ourselves that, as the previous Rebbe said, Mesiras Nefesh means this is the way it has to be. It can't be any other way. That's what Mesiras Nefesh means. Not only because, again, because it's darker, we need the Mesiras Nefesh, we need to have the sacrifice. And connected with this, it's precisely because it's darker, we were forced to search within ourselves for that higher and deeper part of ourselves, where the essence of a Jew, as Rebbe said, is Teshuvah Mesiras Nefesh. The essence of a Jew is the power to return to Hashem and sacrifice. So that element within ourselves, the power of Mesiras Nefesh, that permeates throughout the year every experience that we do. Every experience has to be saturated with this idea of Mesiras Nefesh, this idea of devotion to Hashem. Whatever you're doing, you're supposed to be giving up whatever it is externally and thinking about what it's meant for. It doesn't mean you have to kill yourself and hurt yourself every day. What it means is that you're devoting yourself to Hashem, whatever you're doing. That you're thinking about where Hashem wants you to be and what you're doing. So Chanukah saturates not just our davening, but Chanukah continues out after Chanukah in every experience of our life. Chanukah is about Mesiras Nefesh. Unlike as we learned yesterday, Purim, which is also about Mesiras Nefesh, which was Yonatan's question. Purim was a Mesiras Nefesh. You had a Mordechai telling you to do Mesiras Nefesh. There was a prophet telling you to do Mesiras Nefesh. Yes, it was Matasyona's children, time of Chanukah, but it wasn't the same thing. It wasn't like there was a prophet standing there and this was the prophet of Hashem. Chanukah came from within the Jewish people themselves. It was our own decision. The lights are off, the candles are out. You don't see the prophet of Hashem anymore, and you're saying to the Eibishter, "I'm here with you. I'm Mila Hashem Elai." When you hear the call of Matasyahu somehow, who is with me? You show up. So on Chanukah, we find more of an emphasis of the sun setting, of Chanukah setting. Chanukah setting is actually the essence of what Chanukah is about. The essence of Chanukah is about when the sun sets, when the holiday of Chanukah is not there anymore. Baruch Hashem, we're still here today with the greatest power, as we learned yesterday. The greatest power of Chanukah is today. But even after Chanukah finishes, the contrary, that's when the essence of Chanukah is revealed. The essence of Chanukah is revealed after Chanukah, because the whole theme of Chanukah is when something is missing, what that does to you, how that brings out a deeper koyach, a deeper energy in you. So bottom line, my friends, is that we're at the end of the Golus, the end of the exile. There are tests and challenges that we have all never dreamed of, and we have mistakes that we never thought we would ever get into. And the Eibishter orchestrates all this, because not just the ones that he made, but also the ones that we made, in order to bring out within ourselves this deeper devotion to him, where you don't see the light of Hashem, where you don't see the glory of the mitzvahs that you're doing. You don't see the reward even of Gan Eden or a physical reward, and the fact that all those different kinds of sun set, you don't see the glory of the mitzvah, you don't see the value of the mitzvah, you don't see your name in lights by doing the mitzvah. In a way, it takes away your impetus and your drive to do it. On the other hand, it brings out in you this simple soldier of Hashem, the deepest connection of the essence of Hashem. And that's what I wanted to share today. Any questions, comments, criticism? All right. A good Yontav, Yontav Jonathan, Yontav David.